This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com. Well, The Undertaker, he's going to be taking on Mark Henry here. This is when they're really trying to cement that Mark Henry is a top guy. He had been working a series of main events on the way here. This is a casket match. So anytime it's an Undertaker casket match at WrestleMania, you would think this is going to be a big deal. But Meltzer called it a nothing match. He says the only thing saving it from being a bad match is that toward the finish, The Undertaker did an insane running dive over the top. Now, granted, he's done that on big shows for years, but there was a casket on the floor and he had to jump over the ropes and clear the casket or else he'd be in a lot of trouble. This is a 44-year-old man who has destroyed his body due to injuries, and he is 6'9" and around 300 pounds doing it. He did it. He flew and he landed on Henry. Then, almost as scary, he picked up the 400 pounder with a tombstone pile driver. For anyone under 300, that's not a huge deal, but that's a lot of weight to hold and one slip, and that's not a pretty thought. It turned out fine in that neither Undertaker nor Henry was hurt, but it didn't turn out fine as far as being a good match. 1.5 stars. I found that write-up from Dave fascinating because The Undertaker is usually the target of a lot of negative stuff in this era from Meltzer, but he really loved the athleticism on multiple fronts here of The Undertaker. Were you nervous when he would talk about or plan to do these big dives like this? Because it doesn't feel like it's necessary in a conventional big man style. For years, we hear guys say, "Oh, wrestle like a giant, be a big man, be a giant." That's not very giant like, but on a special occasion like this for WrestleMania, maybe it makes sense. What say you?
Well, the flying cow. I mean, it's one of those situations where you got to trust the talent. If the talent feels good about it, then there's no reason not to do it. If they are comfortable, and Taker done it many, many times before. Casket being there is a little wider, but he also felt very confident. Man, Taker's got hops.
Right.
He could probably still do it. That was a dig. But he probably still could, son of a bitch. He's got hops, and he's a hell of an athlete and a strong, deceptively strong guy as well. But, when you talk about the match, I think that this was more of a coming out match for Mark Henry and an opportunity to be in there with the Taker and say, hey, let's prove yourself and prove that you can hang in this situation. And I think that Mark did that here. And this was probably one of those moments where it made people notice, sit up and go, you know what? Mark Henry could be the guy at some point.
It's interesting that this is not exactly one of the more memorable moments for Taker during his WrestleMania streak, but it is a fine match. I think it's better than 1.5 stars because just of what all Dave laid out, you just see some really cool spectacles that you still remember to this day. But it's really the last Taker match for a while that's not considered a classic, because he gets Batista, he gets Edge, he gets Shawn twice, he gets Hunter twice, he gets Punk, and then he loses to Lesnar. But I think even though the streak is very much a thing here, it really starts to pick up steam, I think, with the next year. Would you agree with that?
No, I wouldn't. I think that it had picked up probably about a year or two before that, and it meant something. I do think that the streak meant something, and had Mark been the one to defeat Undertaker, then it would have meant even more.
How much serious?
So I think it was there.
How much serious consideration was put into that? And I know in hindsight, people say, "Oh, not much. Mark wasn't the top guy." I wonder, the reason I started this whole discussion is Mark had been working main events for a few months at this point. Like even on the European tours, they were doing 3-ways with Angle, Undertaker, and Mark. So if you're a strong enough card to main event a European tour, the company has you figured in a big way.
Yeah. And I think that Mark was a top guy. And I think that Mark Henry definitely, was in consideration. And we talked about it. We talked about it at length. And it wasn't a simple, no, he's not the guy. It went on for a while and debated back and forth until we finally ended up where we ended up.
You know, sometimes it's, I think I've heard people say it's not who goes over, it's who gets over. I think Mark Henry, his career from here forward is going to be leveled up. You could, in another way, even say that Undertaker helped make him a bigger star here. But he goes on to work with Batista, who's main evented at WrestleMania, Edge, who's about to have the run of a lifetime here in 06, Shawn Michaels twice, Triple H twice, Punk when Punk's fresh off of that incredible title run, and then Lesnar. Is this sort of the last year we asked Taker to help make a guy, and after this, it's just nothing but WrestleMania main eventers?
Well, I think some people would have argued that Mark Henry was a main eventer at that point, and I think that it was a good WrestleMania for the Undertaker and for Mark Henry.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.